And speaking of terrorism, let's now shift our focus to Nigeria, which has experienced ideological terrorism of the most unfathomable dimensions. On Saturday, a woman with a baby on her back carried out a suicide attack. You heard that right. The suicide bomber was a woman who had the baby strapped to her back when she detonated explosives in the middle of a wedding ceremony. It was one of the 3 terror attacks in the country on the same day. As the injured were taken to the hospital, a second female suicide bomber blew herself up at the hospital. Later, another attack was carried out by a female bomber disguised as a mourner at the funeral for victims of the wedding blast. All 3 incidents occurred in the city of Gwoza. At least 18 people were killed, 19 seriously injured. After the series of bombings, no one has claimed responsibility for the string of attacks, but the region has been scarred by more than a decade of violence by the jihadist group Boko Haram. Although Boko Haram has lost ground in recent years, jihadists continue to attack rural communities in Nigeria on a regular basis. But here's the disturbing truth about Boko Haram. In addition to carrying out deadly attacks, Boko Haram has repeatedly deployed women for suicide bombing attacks. Some of these female bombers are prisoners of the group who carry out the attacks under drug influence and coercion. In fact, Boko Haram's use of women as bombers increased following the abduction of over 276 female students between 16 and 18 years old from their school dormitories in April 2014. The Chibok girls' abduction, as it is remembered, prompted the global Bring Back Our Girls campaign, remember, as well as regularly using women to carry out deadly explosions. Boko Haram is also at the forefront of normalizing the use of children as suicide bombers. In recent years, the group's strategy has included stepping up child recruitment. Recruitment of child soldiers is the latest in the series of brutal and inhuman tactics deployed by Boko Haram since it started its insurgency a decade ago. Along with the mass murder of innocent civilians, the terror group has long engaged in mass abduction of schoolgirls and sexual enslavement of women. They recruit by abducting children. In fact, abductions have become a recurrent fixture in Nigeria, especially in the restive northern regions. The children are recruited and used in direct combat as sexual slaves and as suicide bombers, a grossly repugnant war crime. But it happens nonetheless. In many cases, the child used for the suicide bombing is between the ages of 5 and 8. Can you imagine that? In fact, the group has also relied on older children whose families have been killed during the conflict. The children being used as suicide bombers have absolutely no idea whatsoever what is going on. So then why can't Nigeria stop the abduction of children? Well, the answer to that, of course, is complex and is multi-layered, just like the crisis in the country. There is corruption. There is a lack of cohesiveness in the security structure. There is no rapid response to the attacks. There is ineffective collaboration between the police and the military. As to the question of why women and children are used as suicide bombers, there are several reasons here. One being that they are far less likely to be searched. They can hide explosives under their clothing or inside handbags. In some cases, they have even strapped explosives onto their backs with infant children, as seen in the recent case. There are also reports of men dressing as women to slip through security more easily. For Boko Haram's terror recruitment efforts, women and children are more susceptible. The male terrorist leadership sees women and children, in particular, as expendable. Their vulnerability is their curse. For all these reasons, it's the children and the women who are Boko Haram suicide bombers. Experts say that complex, multi-layered issues in the country are at the heart of the worsening crisis. Remember, Nigeria is a country that is grappling with an economic situation that has all but nosedived. High inflation, rising youth unemployment, And the loss of currency valuation has pushed many in the country into criminality. It has compounded the country's problems and Boko Haram's reign of terror. This is just a ticking time bomb. While the use of child soldiers is nothing new in Africa, shouldn't regional governments do more to create better lives for children? To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.